Yo, what is up guys, Face here and welcome back to another video. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Today we're diving into the best heavy tanks at tier 10 in World of Tanks Blitz. These beasts are ready to crush the competition, so let's check them out. And if you're curious about the best medium tanks, be sure to check my previous video, the link's in the description. Let's get into it. So, unlike my best medium tank video, I am not going to be covering 5 tanks in today's video. I'm only going to be covering 3. So with that being said, let's head straight into it. Now, with the tank on my screen, you would possibly think that I am going to be covering the E100 as my third best tank, but I'm actually not. It's going to have to be, where is it here? Where is the tank I'm in question? I am definitely not ready for this, but there he is, Chieftain Mark 6. Now, a lot of you are probably going to be really upset with me that I have chosen the Chieftain Mark 6 to be my third best instead of maybe my first, because I know a lot of people love the Chieftain, especially now that it has its Hesh gun. But in my opinion, I don't know if this tank really needed the Hesh. I kind of wish that it was still a APCR premium shell instead of Hesh. Unless they actually just improve the high explosive shells pen, maybe to like 120, 110 mils. I think I would have been really happy with that. But instead, Wargaming has gone for the full 210 penetration here on Hesh. Now, the reason why I don't like that is because at tier 10, if you're playing a heavy tank, it's kind of annoying to not have APCR, because especially when your initial rounds, your AP rounds, the only thing that can actually go through most armor types is only 242 millimeters, having a penetration to 268. I know I do run calibrated shells because I do obviously want to improve the Hesh gun a bit, but with a maximum of 275 mils, you're not really going to be penning a lot, especially tanks like the E100's face frontal plate and stuff. It's very hard to pen those vehicles when your only round doesn't have a lot of pen. It's not like something like the 183 where its initial round has 324. So it means if you don't have the ability to pen Hesh frontally on an enemy vehicle, you still have that ability to rely on your initial shell of AP to butter straight through enemies. So yeah, that is why I do not like the Chieftain's current update as much as I probably maybe should. But in my opinion, the FE215B still has the better gun, because you do have the APCR, which gives you that 342 millimeters of penetration, and then you also still have that great Hesh at upwards of 162 to 180 millimeters of penetration. So it gives you that middle ground where, yeah, if you can't pen something with your standard rounds, you can pen them with your premium rounds frontally. And then obviously, if you do get the cheeky chance to shoot people on their sides and on their rears, you can still pen them with that nice Hesh. So in my opinion, the FE215B does have the better gun in terms of the Chieftain Mark 6. So if I could choose my best tank at top 3, it would probably be between the FE215B and the Chieftain Mark 6. The only reason why I would put the Chieftain Mark 6 at my top 3 instead of the FE is because the FE has obviously the improved engine power and the Chieftain Mark 6 has the tungsten. And in current meta, where a lot of tanks got reactive armor, Hesh kind of just eats at reactive armor, because obviously if you shoot Hesh, reactive armor does not take effect. So in this sense, you can pen a lot of people with Hesh, and then obviously beat around that reactive armor that a lot of new heavy tanks have. So yeah, with that being said, I will put the Chieftain Mark 6 there on my third position. Alright, let's move on to the second position, which is going to be the Type 71. Now, it almost sounds like I'm just picking these off my head, but I did put some thought into them, so don't worry about that. Now, a lot of people might get upset about this because obviously the Type 71 has been through a lot of nerfs since it was released. Now, this tank used to be absolutely broken because of one thing, and it was its traverse speed. This tank used to turn so quickly that it was just so troll to pen. And in my opinion, it is still a very troll tank, even in today's meta. Now, obviously, if you run improved suspension, it improves the hull turn rate up to 31.67 degrees, which is actually very quick. Obviously, if you run improved control and then you use your improved suspension, you're getting a heck of a lot of hull turn rates. And it just makes this tank still one of the most troll tanks to pen and play. Now, obviously, the gun is a big factor to me putting this at its top second, in my opinion. Now, compared to a lot of tanks like the Reno and stuff, where I would put the Reno here maybe as well, the Reno is not a broken tank, neither is the Type 71, but I do like the Reno's gun better, so you could put both of them in the same position as well. And this is just kind of the difficulty of choosing 3 best tanks, is because there's so many good ones, it's hard to pick the first 3 that I would put above the rest. And unfortunately, and to some, I have put the Type 71 above the Reno, and it's mainly because of its premium AP rounds, which having upwards of 352 millimeters of pen on premium AP, or AP, yeah, basically premium AP, it is absolutely broken. You're penning through a lot of vehicles, no problem. Tanks like the Super Conqueror that have space armor in front of their turrets and stuff, you're just buttering straight through it, and that's why I love the Type 71. Having premium AP is just so like, a lot of people think it's just this underwhelming thing, and they don't really take advantage of it, or at least notice it as much as they should be. And premium AP, you must know, like on the Ho-Re, it is absolutely broken. You're penning through everything. And the Type 71, while it doesn't have as much pen as the Ho-Re in its premium AP, it's still really high up there. And it means that you just butter straight through everything, especially as a heavy tank. When you're going into heavy tank brawls, you are going to pen everything. Now, a lot of people might ask, why don't I run the improved vertical stabilizer having 9 degrees of gun depression? Well, it's mainly because I don't think this is a hull down tank. It's not supposed to be a hull down tank. Its cheeks can be penned pretty easily by high pen heavy tanks and tank destroyers, as well as the fact that it has a hatch. So I find this tank to be more of a brawly flat ground vehicle. You can side scrape in it if you do not get penned on the little cheek here. As long as you're using that hull turn rate, you're going to be pretty troll at penning these side skirts here. Now, the upper hull isn't as strong as it might have well used to be, but it still can bounce a lot of shells, and if you give it a good angle, it is very troll to pen. The lower plate, I do believe, was nerfed, so it's a bit easier to pen it, but regardless, I mean, it's still having on stock 6 degrees of gun depression is not too bad. 6 degrees, I would say when it gets to about 5 degrees, it's when it's really bad and you're going to struggle, but at 6 degrees, you're chilling, man, especially if you're going to play this tank on flat ground, using that great mobility that you get from running the improved suspension. Yeah, it's just an amazing factor of this vehicle, and combining that, I just love this tank for the capabilities that it has. Its mobility, its armor, its gun, it's just all round just positives, and that is why I would put it in my second position. Let me know what you guys think of this one. I think it might be a pretty controversial one. Okay, now in my first position, the tank that I would pick over any other heavy tank in the game if I were to choose to play it. Now, there's tanks like the VK90 with formidable armor, great DPM, well, not great DPM, but great alpha, as well as the ability to side scrape better than any other tank in the game. But I would choose this tank over it any day. Now, you might also think AMX M4 was buffed. It has great frontal armor now, but it is still not this vehicle. The tank that I am talking about is obviously the Super Conqueror. Now, this vehicle didn't get the greatest buff out there in the latest updates, but it did get a pretty decent buff to its DPM. If you run gun armor, you can get upwards of 3000 DPM. On a heavy tank, that is actually really great. It actually compares to a lot of medium tanks back in the day, especially the previous updates. And even now, there are some medium tanks that are comparable to this vehicle's gun in terms of its DPM. But I like to run calibrated shells to make sure I'm boosting up that high explosive round HE, as well as obviously the premium pen on this vehicle, making sure I can pen vehicles a lot easier. Now, why do I love this tank, and why have I put it above all other heavy tanks in the game? Mainly because it is one of the tanks that is really hard to deal with. If you put this thing held down and you use that gun depression and you use that great armor, it is going to do really well. And using that DPM, decent accuracy, and also the pretty decent pen on this vehicle, you're going to be penning a lot of guys with ease. Now, the one thing I will say is that obviously its hatch over here can be penned pretty easily. However, if you are fully held down, it is still a hard thing to pen, and these little pieces here are spaced armor, so if they shoot heats and stuff, it's just going to absorb it, and it's going to be happy days for you because you're going to be bouncing shells. Another nice thing is that this tank has these spaced armor bits in front of the turret, meaning that high pen vehicles with heat rounds will most often than not get absorbed in these little plates and not do damage to you. Now, obviously, you can pen these little gaps around the gun pretty easily with high pen heat guns, but obviously, if you do hit this little plate over here, or even the gun with heat, it's going to bounce and be absorbed in the turret, which is very nice. Spaced armor is pretty good on a vehicle. You always want to have some spaced armor now and then, because it really helps out with dealing with heat rounds that a lot of vehicles do have nowadays. Now, another place that has a spaced armor is obviously on this frontal plate here. As you can see here, there's like this little plate, and it's spaced from the main armament of the vehicle, and that also can catch heat rounds. So when a lot of people, especially new players that you verse, have the ability to shoot heat, and they see this upper plate go completely gray, thinking that they can go straight through it, and then they shoot heat at that, and it just gets absorbed and bounces, and they don't know why. And it's because of that spaced armor here. The only time you're really going to pen the vehicle with heat on this upper plate is if you shoot this little bar at the top here that isn't covered by spaced armor, or this little other bar or other plate up here with heat as well. And the only time you're really going to shoot these pieces is if you're in a face hug and you're in a vehicle that's higher than the S-Conk. Now obviously the bad side about this vehicle is that any tank with premium APCR, so tanks like the FE215B, the IS-7, and many other tanks like the Type 71 that I mentioned, having premium AP or APCR rounds, are just going to butter straight through this upper plate regardless of if they use premium rounds or their AP rounds. And that's just because obviously this upper plate is pretty strong, but the main armament of it is having heat or the spaced armor to block heat shells and nothing more. Another weakness of the vehicle is while it does have this spaced armor on the turret here, it still can be penned straight through by tanks like the Type 71. Hurry, with having that premium AP, it's going to go straight through the turret, taking no effect from the spaced armor over here. So there is a benefit to having spaced armor. If you verse a tank that has premium AP or APCR, the spaced armor might as well not exist because it basically doesn't. Premium AP and APCR just go straight through spaced armor. Now the other weakness of this vehicle is that yes, it has spaced armor, which should be able to catch HESH rounds and stuff, but that is the main issue here. If this tank did not have the spaced armor here, which mind you, it is a good thing that this tank has the spaced armor, do not get me wrong, but it absorbs high explosive rounds, which means that if you are held down, you're using that great 8 degrees of gun depression, you are going to take a lot of damage from high explosive rounds. And it kind of almost makes me wish that it didn't have the spaced armor, but then also I'm very happy that it has the spaced armor because I can block heat rounds. But yeah, you're going to take a lot of damage from high explosive. If people are just spamming HE at you, even though you're held down, you're going to take like upwards of 200 damage depending on the tank that's shooting you with HESH or HE. Now, mind you, they are not penning your main armament, but because the spaced armor is here, it's catching the high explosive round when it comes in contact, and that explosion is doing damage to you, which really sucks about the vehicle, but you can't complain when everything is so good about it. Another really nice thing about the S-Conk is that it doesn't really matter what surface you're on. If you're held down, fantastic. You're using the gun depression and you're only showing your turret, you're going to bounce a lot of shells, but it can also go on flat ground, and that is a topic of this vehicle that not a lot of people understand. This vehicle can absorb so many shots when side scraping. It's a really good tank at side scraping, better than some other tanks like the Type 71 and stuff, just because of how thick the tracks are, and then also having a pretty decent armor profile on the side. But yeah, you can absorb a lot of shells. And another nice thing about this vehicle is also the fact that it has these fat tracks over here. They absorb a lot of shells, especially heat shells as well. Now, that is exactly why I would put this vehicle up there as my best tier 10 heavy tank in my opinion. And I would suggest you guys, if you do get the chance to buy this vehicle, or if you are lucky enough to get it free in maybe a crate that you've rewarded yourself with, then I definitely suggest keeping it because it is one of the best, if not the best tank in the game in terms of heavy tank profiles. It is just really good at what it does. It goes held down. You can play it on flat ground. It's very versatile. It has a great gun, great DPM. Mobility is not bad. And obviously the armor is really good. So yeah, if you do get the chance to play this tank, I would highly suggest you guys to just continue and give it more love if you didn't like it already. Now, let me know what you guys think of this video and what you thought about my choices on the best vehicles or best heavy tank vehicles in the game. Now, in my opinion, these are my 3 best, but I will definitely suggest you guys to leave a comment down below on your 3 best tanks that you would rather put instead of the tanks that I chose. And with that being said, guys, hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you can leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out, and I greatly appreciate it. With that being said, guys, hope your shells hit their marks, and I'll check you in the next one. Goodbye.